Happy Thursday, May 14th, 6th graders. Today we're going to learn about the building of the Panama Canal. I hope you're doing well and enjoyed spreading some joy for Mother's Day. I know that was earlier in the week. Hopefully you're spreading it through the several days of this, a lot of time together with family. I hope you have a wonderful day. Be sure to think of something that you are grateful for, and all the best, Mrs. Reed. And that chart at the front is just if you're looking for some creative ideas, I know we can kind of be getting bored or run out of ideas of things to do, so they're just some creative different things, and maybe you can piggyback some ideas off of it as well. Today is Panama. Beautiful country. This is Lake Gatun in the middle, so Panama is covered with mountains and jungle through rainforest through Central America. Why is the Panama Canal important? These are going to be our thinking questions for today. And how was the canal built? This is a picture currently of a webcam that's located at the Miraflores locks. And remember, a canal is just straight dug, so just a channel for water to flow through. Locks are where you come in and gates close and the water either raises or lowers to lift the boats up to a different level lake to connect to a different level. So in the Great Lakes, the St. Lawrence Seaway, which we talked a little bit about with Canada, at the Sioux Locks and at Niagara Falls, we have a series of locks that lifts boat up because there's that cliff that is Niagara Falls. And boats, the locks and the canals are built around that to get the boats up and down from Lake Erie to Lake Ontario. So it's the same thing between the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Panama are mountains. So literally building the Panama Canal, which takes place in the very late 1800s and beginning 1900s, is to literally lift and lower boats, big heavy freight ships, over mountains. So that was why they built. It would save time going down to the tip of South America and around, as Magellan did when he circled the earth. Takes an extra 60 to 70 days, which is all time, money, and a lot more fuel. So for shipping, the Panama Canal saves millions of dollars a year. The Panama Canal is busy 24 hours, 7 days a week. They don't close for any holidays because it's international with all countries, all religions, and they are open. Ships are going through with our economy, with things going back and forth. I don't know if they are now with our economy globally slowing down, but I imagine it's still pretty busy, as we still need a lot of supplies and food that are on those ships that go through. So the Panama Canal saves time and money. It provides a shorter route for shipping. And not just shipping, there are cruise ships that go through, military when we want to get things to Japan when we needed to in World War II, or when Pearl Harbor was attacked. It was using the Panama Canal that saved us a lot of time getting our military troops and supplies there as well. It provides a much shorter route by months for shipping, cutting across Central America instead of going all the way down to the tip of South America. And it is a series of canals and locks. There was kind of a river and a little lake in the middle of the mountains, but they are going to end up connecting them and using locks to raise and lower those ships. And remember, Panama is a narrow isthmus, so that's why Panama was the best location. It's about 41 kilometers across Panama, so it was the most narrow place to build that and the easiest with the waterways that already existed there. Part of it was already a lake where the ships can be raised on some locks and then sail across Lake Gatun and then go down a series of locks on the other side connected with canals that they built. So when you're on the slides, please make sure this is one of the best videos, digging the Panama Canal. I have some real pictures and give you images. So if you think back to 1900s, the steam engines and the locomotives and the big bulldozer kind of claws they were using on some of those, very basic, very beginning equipment, and it is muddy. They're in a rainforest. If you've ever been in a beach and tried to build a canal from the water into the sand, what happens to the sides? They kind of cave in, they get wet, and they start falling in. That happened, but imagine mountains. Deep enough that there are mountains on the side, and there's rainforest, and it's raining every day. And so a lot of, when they begin to build the canal, Panama first gives the French the right at the very end of the 1800s to build the canal. So France decides they're going to build one at sea level. So from the Atlantic, they're going to dig just a straight canal through these mountains to the Pacific. And they're going to start at both sides and meet in the middle. Well, it's going to cost lots of lives. The mudslides are going to sometimes kill people, lots and lots of people. And then Panama also has a problem of mosquitoes. And mosquitoes are going to carry a deadly disease, yellow fever, which will kill many of the workers. They don't have the immunities to it, and as they get bit by the mosquitoes, so there's a lot of difficulties, and the French fail building the canal, and they just leave. And they leave Panama a mess, and they leave a lot of graves behind. So please watch this video. Click on the link when you're on the slides. It's the Panama Canal against all odds. So once the French fail, when President Theodore Roosevelt's elected in the early 1900s, he has the goal of building the canal, and he's going to figure out how to do it. At first, Panama tells, because they're so upset with how the French left such a mess in Panama, they tell the U.S. no. The U.S. has never liked being told no. Theodore Roosevelt was a strong president, beginning of our national parks, where teddy bears come from. He did not want to be told no either. At this time in Panama, there's going to be a conflict with people wanting to rule the government, and it's a smaller country. So President Roosevelt is actually going to help a rebel group, instead of helping the democracy that's already in Panama, help this rebel group take control as long as they agree to allow the U.S. to build the canal. So watch closely in the video. You'll hear the story. You'll see a reenactment, an actor that's acting like Theodore Roosevelt, and then you will see some actual photographs, pictures that they had of President Roosevelt at that time. So the really black and white and the old, some of them are real photographs and some of it is reenactment. So once you watch that video, then make sure you're carefully going through the slides. There's a map from the Atlantic through Lake Gatun across to the Pacific, and the series of locks and canals that had to be built. This is a side cross angle, so you can see where these locks and the level that they have to take these. These ships are climbing up mountains with locks and canals and being lowered down the other side. This is a really neat DK illustration of the Gatun locks, another famous set of the locks. And there are live webcams if you look on the internet and you want to see the Panama Canal today and see how busy it is, and the big freighter ships. And they will carry, like these containers that you see, are the back of semi-trucks and they unload them with cranes and they lift them on, and they might be 10 tall and they might be 200 wide. So there's a lot of freight on these ships that go through, and it's a huge part of our economy and getting materials moved, getting goods moved. So the Panama Canal is really, really important. So the Panama was too poor to build the canal themselves, so they first gave permission to the French. The French failed. They were devastated by the loss of life due to yellow fever, the mudslides that caved in. They just couldn't get control of the mud. They couldn't make a straight, flat canal across. Next, the U.S. asked. Panama would not give the U.S. under President Theodore Roosevelt permission to take over. The U.S. government helps the small group of rebels take over the Panama government. And then the new Panamanian government, in order for the help of the U.S., gave the right to the U.S. to build the canal. In the beginning of 1903, 1904, problems with the building. There are still going to be mudslides. At first, President Roosevelt tries the exact same thing. Even though it didn't work, he thinks the U.S. has more industrialization, more equipment, and that they will be able to just build a straight canal. But soon they realize that's not going to be the case. And he talks to architects about the locks and brings in some of the best engineers around to design those locks in the canals to make it work. While they're working on the design of building locks instead of just a ground level canal, they also realize they're not going to be successful building the canal until they eradicate the mosquitoes. They have to figure out how to control. And you're in a jungle, you're in the rainforest where it's wet all the time. And one of the biggest ways to control mosquitoes is don't leave standing water around. We know that, like, don't be near a swamp because that's where mosquitoes are. So they had to try to dry out areas, clean up the towns. Panama was a much poorer. They had garbage out and things that would attract mosquitoes. So the U.S. went down and really helped to get rid of those mosquitoes, clean up, bring more sanitation to the country of Panama, try to make a better standard of living, and so that the workers would not die from the yellow fever from the mosquitoes. And then, of course, they worked on a vaccine eventually also, or medicines that would help them. And here's another from the DK book about the Panama Canal. On an average, 33 ships can pass through daily, and they continue to have to make the locks bigger because ships continue to get bigger. And it's like a water elevator. If you think of that, locks are like a water elevator that raises them or lowers them by either pumping water out or pumping water into the lock through very thick gates. Imagine that water pressure, how much to hold that water back. So we built and succeeded in building the Panama Canal. We controlled it for 100 years until 1999. And our president then signed over control back, which was part of the agreement for the right to build it, back to the Panamanian government. So we worked together to help protect it. We've had U.S. military down there to make sure, because it is such an important part to our economy as well. So watch the videos that are on the slides, read the slides carefully, and then complete the Panama check-in. I hope you guys have a great day.